scenario, although I am in the process of installing a full satellite rig at home, which will have an ASL rotor and a couple of nicer circularly polarized antennas up above the roof. So there we go. We're going to talk about a couple things. Just briefly, a little bit of promotion for AMSAT, the Radio Amateur Satellite Corporation. Then we're going to get started with FM satellites and things that you need to know, at least a broad selection of terms and concepts, and then what you can do beyond just FM, and resources for you to look at to learn more. AMSAT, again, the Radio Amateur Satellite Corporation, been around, well, this is 50, but it's actually been around for 56 years. Got its start in 1969, and amateur radio satellites have actually been part of the scene since 1961 with Oscar 1, which was the first ever rideshare. It was launched on as a secondary payload on a U.S. military satellite launch. It was just battery powered. It only operated for a few days. It just Morse coded out hi, not even a call sign. But we've been going along. There are a lot of different satellites that not only AMSAT North America, but other organizations and educational institutions and such have put up in the air over the last number of years. FM repeaters, linear transponders. An FM repeater is a single channel device. Linear transponders are for SSB and CW. Basically, they listen to a chunk of spectrum and retransmit on a different band that same chunk of spectrum. So you can have multiple conversations in CW or SSB, or even on several satellites. There's even been successful digital modes like FT4. Packet, APRS, BPSK, PSK31's even been tried. Digital voice has been tried, and telemetry only. A lot of what I call bleep sats. There's satellites using amateur radio frequencies. Maybe a university put them up, something like that. It's convenient, convenient way to get a coordinated frequency for downlinking data. And they may have a private command and control frequency, but you don't know what that is. And so it's not really for two-way communications, but there's a place for that too. This is a fairly complete list of how many satellites are in orbit right now that are active, that can do various modes. Some of them FM, some of them linear transponders, some of them APRS only, some of them are close to being functional, but yet not actively commissioned yet. The ISS, of course, has several different radios on it. It has the crossband repeater, and it has an APRS, and it has ham TV, which is a 2.4 gigs DVB S2 digital transmission, primarily designed to do augment the ARIS school contacts, but it is still receivable by the general public if you have the right antennas and the right decoders. We'll talk a little bit about the I actually don't have a lot of detail about the ISS repeater, but we'll talk about it here as we go along, because it's popular. AMSAT over the last 15 years has developed and is continuing to develop some what are known as CubeSats. It's a standard format. A one unit CubeSat is 10 by 10 by 10 centimeters, but you can stack them, and there's a standardized launch deployer systems that have been built and put on various different launch vehicles. Even the ISS has a deployer for CubeSats off of the Japanese Kibo module. So a standard form factor is good. Back in the day, you built a satellite, you just kind of built it to fit your electronics, and that was that. but about 25 years ago, some development started happening with trying to standardize secondary payload launch formats. CubeSat's one of the standardized formats. For AMSAT, we leveraged the insides of the CubeSat. The bottom board segments there were ours. They were like our transmitter, our receiver, our IHU, and basically a little control unit that acted on signals from the received at the receiver for command and control. But then we offered up to 4 different boards up top for university-sponsored payloads. Virginia Tech provided a camera and a control board. Vanderbilt University in Iowa State did radiation effects projects. Penn State did a MIMS gyro project. It's been on several of them. And that helped us get freebie launches from NASA. Now, we still had to build it, develop it, had to go through the environmental testing, but those launches were free. And unfortunately, I can't get them anymore because with the NASA budget cuts of up to 25% and the refunding of AMSAT due to the big, beautiful bill, AMSAT killed the CubeSat Launch Initiative program, so we can't get those freebies from them anymore. But we're looking for other rideshare opportunities like that. And we do have some development projects for us here in North America that are coming up. Fox Plus. Fox was our FM series of satellites. Fox Plus is a kind of a redesign of them. Gulf T and Gulf are the next series of satellites that'll have more modern data like software-defined transceivers and 5 and 10 gigahertz uplinks and downlinks and stuff like that. So that's coming up. We're also offering, if you know a university that has a space aeronautics space program that is developing satellites, AMSAT would love to provide a linear transponder module to help do the, we would like to have an amateur radio two-way communications on every university satellite launched. Unfortunately, we've only got it on 2, which was Washington State's HuskySat and Maine's University of Maine's MESAT-1, both of which unfortunately are now dead due to just battery life, environmental things. Space is hard. Things don't always work the way you plan them to. There's a lot of other AMSAT organizations all around the world. Some of the AMSAT Germany has been very active in developing a hosted payload with the Qataran Communications Agency. So they have a geostationary satellite over Africa that provides 2.4 gig and 10 gig downlink signals to all of Europe and Western Asia and Africa, the Middle East. We don't have that here yet. There's a want and a desire, and maybe something happening down the road. But it's going to have to be a cooperative effort with other commercial business organizations. So getting started. FM satellites are the easiest way to get into the thing. I mean, you can do other methodologies, but it's very easy to have a simple antenna, a simple radio like a handheld, and a couple of other little pieces of gear, and off you go. There is a lot more to do besides FM, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. These are the types of things we're going to talk about here. What equipment do I need? How do I know where the satellites are? How do I know what frequencies to listen to? How do I know what modes to use? Now, how do I track a satellite? What do I say? And some tips here we're going to talk about. What equipment do I need? You preferably, if you're going to start with FM, you preferably want a radio that's a dual band, and preferably a radio that can do full duplex. The idea is you want to be able to hear yourself coming back from the satellite to know that you're getting in, that you're not stomping on somebody and they're not stomping on you. Because remember, an FM repeater is a single channel device. And as you all well know, if two of you transmit on your local repeater, the strongest station wins, or nobody wins because the signals basically are equal and they screw each other up. So, kind of need to know that. I will admit that I spent my first 5 or 6 years using this radio, which technically is full duplex, but has some limitations on it. There are mods to fix that, but I never could find anybody that wanted to tear the whole thing apart to fix it. And ICOM doesn't.
Which radio is that?
That's an old ICOM W32A. Now, an incentive for you to come down to our AMSAT table, I have a handout down there that has a fairly exhaustive list of handheld radios, of mobile radios, and all mode radios that can do amateur satellites, and they may be able to do them. Sometimes they can't do them without a mod. Sometimes they do it natively. So I would suggest, if you have any interest at all, come down, grab the sheet. Another thing that we do have a net, actually 2 different nets in the Metroplex. One on Wednesday nights on the Arlington repeater, 147.14 at 9 o'clock. The other one most Tuesdays, except for the first Tuesday of the month, on the Dallas Amateur Radio Club, 146.88. And I also have, on that sheet with the radios, is a little mini card that has information about those 2 nets.
I'm sorry, can you give us those times and frequencies again?
Okay, Wednesday night, 147.14, 9 o'clock. On Tuesday nights, except for the first Tuesday of the month, on the Dallas Amateur Radio Club, 146.88. They also do have an Echolink or an All-Star node.
What time is the Dallas?
8 o'clock, sorry. Sorry, you're writing. But we're glad to have you. And again, I got there's a drop card that I have, a little card down. Go grab the sheet and you'll get the card and you'll have it all there. And you can keep up with that. And that's, I have another radio. I have the Kenwood D72A, which is really one of the better satellite capable dual band cross full duplex radios. It works really good on UHF to VHF, UHF up, VHF down. It works adequately on VHF up and UHF down. Problem with this radio, this older ICOM, is it doesn't transmit below 440. The amateur radio satellite frequencies range, it can listen on 435 to 438, which is the allocation on 77 centimeters, but without a mod, it can't. And that was what you had to take virtually the whole radio apart to get to one stupid diode to clip. I kid you not. Why couldn't ICOM have just done that? I don't know. But anyway, the D72 is also good because if you have fast fingers, you can do APRS with it. And APRS over satellite. The ISS has APRS. There's another satellite called Sonnet that has APRS on 145.825 for both of them. And there's, I think, at least one or two more that can do APRS at times. So it's a good radio. If you get fast fingers, you can do APRS with just the D72. Mobile radios are good too, especially if like the ICOM 2710, 2030 series. Yaesu's has had some. Kenwood has had like the D700, D710, V71s. All of those are dual band, dual listen capability, so they're full duplex. Yaesu's 8800, 8900. I used to have an 8800. Worked out really well for that. Or all mode radios, like the 9700 is the only in production radio that does VHF and UHF and has a satellite mode. I personally own an FT847, which is about now coming up on 25 years old. I bought it used. Still a very venerable satellite radio, has a satellite mode, can do full duplex, can use tracking software to drive the frequencies on it to deal with Doppler shift on single sideband or CW, or even FT8, FT4. Or you can take two radios. If you got an 817, 818, a pair of them, one for VHF, one for UHF, and transmit on the one that works for that particular satellite mode. Right now, all of our amateur radio satellites operate on either 2 meters or 70 centimeter, one way or the other. Used to be 1.2 gigs. There have been a couple of satellites that did that. That's going to become very difficult now. After the last World Radio Conference, the European folks who do their brand of GPS-style satellites were not happy about amateur radio stations close by in frequency interfering with them, even though they really wouldn't. And so they got rules put in place that if you're transmitting straight up, you can only transmit like a 1/10 of a watt or something like that of ERP. So that's just not going to do very well. So pretty much 1.2 gigs is a satellite band. Every amateur radio band, actually, except for 6 meters, above 21 megahertz has a satellite allocation to it. But there's just not many options. You really want to get the best antenna system you can get. You need forward gain. Putting a rubber ducky on this will not get you very far. There are videos out there that show people doing satellite passes with long whips. I don't think you'd get away with that anymore. It's gotten kind of popular and gotten kind of crowded up there sometimes, especially for FM. You might be able to hear it, the ISS. ISS crossband repeater transmits at 5 watts. That's pretty good. AO91, AMSAT's CubeSat, transmitted at 600 milliwatts. SO50 transmits at 250 milliwatts, and there are some that even are less. So you got to have some forward gain to it.
What about the egg beater antennas?
The what?
Egg beater?
Egg beaters work, but they're an Omni, and the Omni doesn't, remember, you don't really have gain on an Omni.
No, sure don't.
So the best methodology, if you're going to stick one up permanently, is to stick a preamp in right after it. I did an experiment, I had an egg beater, a 70 centimeter one, and I plugged it into my SDR, but I put a preamp in between there, and so I could turn on and off the preamp. I could not see RS-44 signals at all without it. I could get them kind of enough so I could hear the conversation with it, but I then switched over to my Aero antenna, which I don't have with me, but it's downstairs. And that was like night and day. So they work. Some people like them. Some people claim that they do really well with them. You don't need a rotor. It works great, but you're at the sacrifice of forward gain. And also because you're getting noise from all around, you pick up the noise. So your noise floor is higher than if you have a directional antenna. But it can be done. You know, that's the aero antenna that the commercial antenna that aero antenna sells. The basic one is 3 elements on 2 meters and 7 on 70. You can buy a bigger version that's a little harder to handhold that has 4 and 10 or 11. That's me on the Maine coast trying to see if I can scarf up any contacts from over in Ireland or the west of England, but I didn't have any success that night. You can also get an elk, which is a log periodic. That's a neat option. I find it on 70 centimeters being very tight polarity-wise. So I'm not but because it's only in the same plane, it's a lot easier to lay in the trunk of your car and not have to take half of it apart to keep it from bouncing around. There are a couple of homebrew designs, like this guy here, VBE2ZAZ. Our friend Kent Britton down there in the main display area there has his cheap Yagi. Go to search for WA5VJB cheap Yagi, and you'll find his plans. It's a nice PDF, and you can build it. He claims for $20. I think a little more, but not much. You could even hand wind a little duplexer on a pencil and do that. You can run it as 2 separate feeds as well. I have a friend who does that because she has 2 radios, and so that works out fine. Now, I just saw something come down to the table. I have a cheap commercial option to give you that I didn't know about. About 6-7 years ago, the folks in some guy in South Africa designed a inline Yagi that had a 2-meter driven element and 70 centimeter parasitic element for the drivers, and they were inline, and they were just selling them there, and they were selling them to other organizations, but in bulk. ARRL picked up that, and you can get a satellite capable antenna that I understand is very good for $100 from ARRL. So come down to the table. We have a sample of that downstairs. It's being used for a pass demo here in a couple of minutes, and that will unfortunately be the last one that that we have for the day because there just aren't many. What? 11:40. You guys can all run outside and ignore me for the last of the thing if you want. I'll look it up here when I get to a chance. You want to make sure you get adapters and such for whatever coax that you're going to use. You want to bring along some extra gear, usually a compass or a phone, a voice recorder. If you have ever listened to any of these passes, and I do have a video here I could play, but I'm hoping that the audio won't get diverted to the TV because that shows a pass. That might be a good thing. If I speed up, I can get there. Satellite tracking apps are a good thing to have. You can get them for the PC. You can get them for your phones, whether they be Android or iOS. I am running an app called GoSat Watch on my iPhone, which is the second one from the left. SatSat, some people like. I don't. I mean, it's okay. Works. For both the Android and iOS is ISS detector. GoSat Watch is $9.99, and it'll give you a nice Earth view, a nice sky view. It'll let you track, passes of selected satellites that you do. It lets you select which satellites you want or out of various groups. Or
Which one is that?
what?
Which one is that you're showing us?
This is GoSat Watch for iOS.
Would you consider that the best one?
It's the one I like the best because it's the prettiest graphics. ISS detector is good too. The one caveat for the ISS, or actually any of the satellites, but ISS specifically, is there's a little filter tab, and you want to click it, and you want to make sure that you show all passes, not just visible, because obviously people, just the general public, for free, want to go and look up when's the ISS coming over so I can see it. Well, you can't see it in the daytime. You can't see it when it's an eclipse. So but if you're going to be tracking it for using the crossband repeater, you want to get all passes. Of course, for the PC, there's apps like SatPC 32, which can handle Doppler corrections on a all-mode type radio. It can handle a rotor control. It gives you a nice pass prediction and such like that. It's been around for a long time, at least 25 years, if not more. A German author still maintains it, and but you'll love it. His error messages are all written in German, so when something goes wrong, you might get a nein, nein, type error from it, and so you have to then figure out the translation on the error. But the rest of the app's in German. Mac users, Mac Doppler. But here's a new app that I love. It's called Skyroof. It's written by a Canadian here, the same guy that wrote OmniRig. The thing about Skyroof is it's a hybrid. You can use an SDR like your RTL SDR or an SDR Play as the receive side with a graphical waterfall interface, and then you can drive another radio like an IC 9700 or an 847 or the Kenwood TS2000, or even probably with the right coding, single channel radio or single like an Kenwood, like an ICOM 7100 or any radio that can do cat control. You probably could ultimately, and do all modes on VHF and UHF, you could probably make work as a transmit side on this. So I'm a big fan of this program. The guy's had it out for just about a year. He's continuing to develop it and developing the cat control for it, and so it's a lot of fun. There's also some web apps out there. AMSAT Argentina has a cool little app that you can select satellites and find out what their azimuth or elevation are and such like that. N2YO is a great database of everything that's orbiting, not just amateur. And of course, the old-fashioned way is...
I'm sorry, go ahead and read this slide. Oh, I'm sorry, that one right there. I'm sorry. Got it, thank you.
Sorry about that.
I'm sorry.
Or of course, there's the old AMSAT.org text-based satellite prediction, which is how I got started 15 years ago. Select your satellite, enter in your grid square, as you see down the bottom, hit predict, and it'll give you in a text window, and all the information you need is right there. We're going to talk about AOS and LOS and max elevation and things like that here in a minute. And then there are some satellites that are up there they're on timers or they're on schedules, and it's kind of, this guy wrote a nifty little app for a web app that took information about when certain satellites were on the air and provided them as a schedule. Unfortunately, I think this app hasn't kept up. The guy hasn't kept it up, so it's not working anymore. Now, the idea of a pass, everything we have is in low Earth orbit. We have nothing that's geosynchronous over here, over North America. So we got to know where the satellite is, which direction it's going to be traversing from horizon to horizon, how high will it go, and all that information. Thank you to Johannes Kepler, back multiple hundred years ago, before there was ever anything up in orbit around the Earth. He developed the mathematical rules for tracking an orbital object around the Earth based on the laws of gravity and they're still perfectly accurate. His math is perfect. If you take a reading from a known location at a given point of the day with what direction the satellite is moving, there are 7 elements to the equation, and then you can predict from there where a satellite will be at any given time in the future, as long as the satellite orbit is not decaying. And it depends upon, like with the ISS, KEPs are, we call them KEPs, or orbital elements, are accurate for a couple of weeks, unless the ISS gets boosted by a Soyuz vehicle or something like that. And then, so it's really good for ISS to update whatever tracking program you're using, or this one does it automatically, but some programs do them manually. Update them every so often. Now, higher satellites their orbit isn't decaying very fast, so they might be good for a month or more. But even space weather, like geomagnetic storms, will affect how a satellite's orbit. There's a concept of a footprint. In the past, this is a slide. It's a little hard to see in the slide, but you'll see the red circle. The ISS at about 260 miles. That red circle depicts its footprint. If we're inside that footprint, we can hear that particular spacecraft. Higher up, AO7, close to 1,000 miles, has a much bigger footprint. So you can, folks on the East Coast can easily work into Europe. We can't. It's very difficult.
AO7 is the battery only one?
What?
AO7 is the sunlight only one?
Yes. AO7 is the sunlight only one. It died, it came back to life, and it's, but daylight only. We used to have a satellite called Green Cube, which was a hosted payload on an ESA satellite at about 3,600 miles. And it gave you a pretty awesome footprint. You could, from here, you could work DX into Western Asia or all the way into Russia from here. But that satellite died. That payload died, and so it's no longer there. As I mentioned, we always work in dual band. APRS is an exception. APRS uplink is the same as the downlink on 145.825. Frequencies are coordinated by the ITU and the IARU, actually, but in ITU regulations, there is a designated satellite subband for every band above 21 megahertz except for 6 meters. So one of the things that it may, 435 to 438 may look pretty darn empty to you, would be a good place to stick your hotspot or whatever, but that's not a good thing because those could be uplink frequencies for amateur satellites. We had an issue with somebody with a hotspot that they had put on an external antenna, and it was interfering with AO92 in a major way. You'd hear these DMR braps. They finally tracked it down and got the guy to please move it.
Question.
Yeah.
A lot of satellites have come and gone over the years. What do you think is the #1 killer of satellites?
Batteries is one. One of the other limitations these days is debris mitigation. Most satellites are now being launched in a sun-synchronous 500 kilometer orbit, about 300 and some odd miles, because under the new rules, either your satellite you have to either allow it to be able to deorbit within 5 years of the end of its life, or figure out a way to do it with a thruster or a sail or something like that, or get it up out of that range to try to keep it from. But with Starlink up there, I mean, there's the potential for, and all the other constellations, there's a good potential in the next few years. We're going to have a collision. We're going to start having a cascade effect that's going to affect a lot of different orbital stuff. You know, we do, like I said, uplinks and downlinks on different frequencies, and that's so that you can do a full duplex. APRS is kind of the exception. We do have to deal with Doppler effect. Now, on an FM handheld, most of the majors only have 5 kilohertz steps. Doppler shift on 2 meters is only 3.5 kilohertz plus or minus. So you can't affect anything very much by doing a 5 kilohertz step. 70 centimeters is about 9.5 kilohertz per second, per plus or minus, I should say. So you do have to do some shifting. Now, if you're using one of the SSB or CW linear satellites, you all know that on terrestrial stuff, if you're off by 100 hertz, it sounds pretty darn weird. If you're not constantly correcting that on a satellite that's moving by Doppler. Now, so here's this graph. This is kind of interesting. This is looking at the ISS crossband repeater. The red line is a low level pass. Now, you don't know if you listen to a train from far away, the train's moving, but you don't really hear that horn change frequency very fast. But if you're standing next to the tracks, the train's coming right at you, it gets as it gets closer, first of all, you are hearing the horn much higher in frequency, but it doesn't seem to change a lot until it gets right next to you. And then it goes from, that's exactly what we have to deal with RF. Just the frequency shifts are higher, the higher the frequency that you're at. If you're talking 2.4 gigs, you're talking like five or six times more. So you're talking at maybe 40 kilohertz per up plus and minus or more for Doppler. So you have to, Doppler correction becomes even more critical the higher in frequency you goes. AO7 does have a 10 meter downlink, so it only drifts a couple of hundred hertz, possibly plus or minus. So you can deal with that manually. Oops. There we go. Oh, stop it. I just muted myself. There we go. So this kind of just depicting how with an FM transceiver you would adjust the Doppler shift if listening to a 70 centimeter satellite like SO50. The 2 meter side that you're transmitting on, you wouldn't adjust. The 70 centimeter side, you would. And this is kind of a chart of how I programmed my memories for SO50. Transmit, leave alone. Receive side, I just put some steps in there. If you're uplinking on 70 centimeters, then you have to kind of reverse the Doppler. Remember, the satellite's moving, you're not, but the satellite thinks it's standing still and you're moving. So as a result, you've got to kind of go backwards to try to keep what you're transmitting on the same frequency that it's receiving on. So that's kind of what this is talking about here. And this is how I would program a radio for the downlink on 2 meters, not moving it, but the uplink on 70 centimeters going the opposite direction. What frequencies you need to do. AMSAT.org has a good frequency chart. Here we go. You can go online to AMSAT.org. Satellite information, communications, satellites. They have a listing of different frequencies for all the currently active FMs, currently active linear transponders, and also some of the digital ones. You can go also to JE9PEI, PEL, I should say, has a very exhaustive chart of frequencies for everything that has ever been launched on an amateur radio frequency. You know, then the concept of tracking the satellite, if it tells you it starts in the northeast at 35 degrees and will transition to its maximum elevation or time of closest approach at 125 degrees, and then we'll go in the horizon at 180 or something like that. You kind of know, you start here, you're going there, and you're going there, and you kind of know how long the pass is, so you kind of just have to follow along based on time as you go. Polarity is kind of important. Some of these satellites, like the Fox satellites, didn't have any attitude control, so they would tumble. They did have a bar magnet to kind of try to help them align to the Earth's magnetic field, but every time you flip a pole, you're flipping the attitude again, so the satellites tend to flop around or rotate, so that kind of does affect polarity. For FM satellites, you don't do what we heard last night. You do not rag chew. It's a single channel repeater that you only have like 12 minutes to use, and there's probably 20 people out there trying to use it, and they all want to make QSOs. Call sign grid square, acknowledge, and you're off. You know, don't hog the frequency. There were two guys, they were on SO50 last night. Hey, you still there? Yeah, I hear you. Okay. And it was like, stop. Just stop. Shut up and let other people talk. Let other people get on. It was frustrating.
How long were they talking?
Oh, at least 5-6 minutes. I kid you not. It was like, this is not the way you do this. And of course, we do collect grid squares, and some people are more active with this than others. And of course, you can get awards for collecting numbers of grid squares. VUCC, Gridmaster, which is all 488 contiguous grids in the contiguous United States. You can get VUCCs for roving, doing more than 100 grid squares out of a grid square. So that's kind of cool. Working in past is just kind of what you're doing. We've talked about a lot of this stuff already. You may think you need more than two hands, but you can do it.
I'm sorry, could you please go back a couple of slides?
Oh, sure.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're taking pictures.
Yeah.
By the way, ultimately we'll have this on the Cowtown website, so you can, including the video. Here, take that picture too.
Thank you.
Coolness. You know, like I said, you may think you need more than three hands, but and by the way, this poor guy, he's talking and his microphone's up in the air, so he's not going very far. He's not going to be heard. I do recommend, if you're getting started and you listen first. Spend some time listening. Get a feel for what passes sound like. Get a feel for the stations that are out there, where, how you track it, such like that. Then jump in, and again, no rag chewing. And you can take this picture too. It's a good one. And then what to do beyond. I mentioned linear satellites. The 9700, you can get 9100s out there. You can get, you can do linear stuff with non-duplex radios like the 991A, but it's difficult because with sideband, you really need to hear that you're on the frequency that you're transmitting on the frequency in relation to the transponder that you're listening to, because if you're not hearing yourself, you could be over here, so some guy's going to respond to you there, but you're not hearing him because you're over here. So, because you're listening over here. So I don't recommend it. It's not for the weak of heart. SetPC32 does have a mode that it will work with radios that aren't full duplex, like the 991. However, and that's where Skyroof with an SDR off to the side, like your RTL or SDR Play, as a downlink listen, is a great application because it'll open up the door for a lot of people without full duplex all mode radios. You know, that was the other methodology. Get a couple of them. The new Yaesu 5-watt portables are a lot more expensive than the 817s, 818s were when they came out. So that's kind of an expensive pair if you want to go that route. SDRs are good, like I said. Tracking software is a good add to have. Things you can do besides HRD does have a satellite app. People, for the most part, are frustrated with it. Even after all these years of HRD being a paid piece of software, it still doesn't work well. SDR console does work as well. It can control an outside radio, but Skyroof, to me, is the best application for doing this. You can do APRS, some handhelds. The D74, D75 by Kenwood is a great APRS radio. You can get dual band mobiles with built-in TNCs. Of course, the 72A by Kenwood is a great one. Data collection. That's a simple thing. If you've heard of SatNogs, it's an organization. They basically spend their time, usually with Omni antennas, downlinking data from various different satellites and using the SatNogs application to funnel that data to whatever organization that has sponsored the satellite. Like in this case, this is AO73's the FunCube 1 satellite from AMSAT UK. Their data carrier has some solar panel and temperature data, and when you downlink with their software, it via the internet pushes it up to a warehouse that they aggregate that data with other amateur stations so that they can get much more full orbit complete stuff. Slow scan, of course, the ISS periodically has slow scan events. They had one a couple of months ago that finally got successful, although I didn't get a chance to participate because I was out of town or something like that, I think. That's always fun. And the ISS transmits the Russian module radio when it works, transmits at upwards of close to 25 watts. So as a result, you can hear it with a good duck. And you can use a piece of SSTV software on your phone if you want, stick it next to your speaker and decode the image. I have a sample of this downstairs. You can stop. What did I just do?
Self-destruct.
I got to remember what I just did. Hold on. How did I get there? Why am I? Okay, hold on. There we go. That was fun. Never done that before. Okay, there we go. Getting Started with Amateur Satellites book. For $15 from the AMSAT store, you can download the PDF. It's a great book. It'll take you from dead zero information. It explains this a heck of a lot better than I ever could. And it gives you stuff to grow on. If you become an AMSAT member this year, 2026, they'll give you a code for a free download of this, which is a good thing. Or you can pay $30 plus $10 shipping and buy a hardcover version. I'm going to give away my hardcover version, or hard version of it. Did I I didn't mute your mic, did I? Something beeped here. No, you're still good. One of the door prizes for later this afternoon is going to be a hardcover version of this. So if you got a ticket in, you might win one. If not, I recommend buying it. It's a good $15 read, and it's got a lot of good information. AMSAT website has a lot of good information on as well. You can get an online frequency guide. You can get a status page to see what satellites are active and when. If you're an AMSAT member, the AMSAT Journal is a every other month publication. This month has a good article written by the author of Skyroof. So it's a worthwhile thing. That's what I got. Let me pop out of this. But any questions? You were asking a number. You got lots of questions. That's good.